Hi guys! Today we're going to talk about doctors.
It's what I do.
About 4 years ago, I had a pretty close call. I mean, rebranding autism might have just been, well, we'll say, canceled. At the time, I had been having stomach issues for a few months already. And I would tell the nurses and doctors, and they would pretty much just offer me things like Pepto-Bismol to deal with the symptoms. But in my mind, I was thinking, I shouldn't be getting sick every day, or every time I eat, I shouldn't be getting sick. I mean, once in a while, that's normal, but on a daily basis, that's not normal. I get a little hyped up when I talk about this sometimes because it could have been bad, guys. So I finally reached out to my brother and I was like, look, I've been having this problem, and I told him about it and how long it'd been going on, and he ended up having to call the doctors and insist that they get an appointment for me with like a stomach doctor or a GI doctor to find out what was actually going on. So after he talked to them, right away, they got me an appointment. So I went to see the doctor, and I have to say this doctor was pretty good as far as listening to me. He didn't really underestimate me, which happens a lot, but I'll get into that later. And I told him my symptoms, and he was concerned enough to order a test. I went through the test, and lo and behold, they found that I had a growth, and that growth was almost cancer. Like, it was at the last stage before it turns into cancer. And they removed it, and when I woke up, he was like, you know, we saved your life today. And I was just a lot of emotions. I was so happy and blessed that I was able to get it taken care of, but I was also thinking about what would have happened if I had continued to be ignored. The outcome would have been a lot different. And this led me thinking to how many people this must happen to in life. So I wanted to make this video because I feel it's very important to talk about what it's like to see a doctor when you have a disability, or even when you don't have a disability, but the doctors just don't seem to take you seriously. My experience with medical doctors has been that whenever I have a complaint or a symptom that isn't something they can actually see with their eyes, for example, a broken bone on an x-ray, or I'm literally bleeding, or, you know, I am wheezing and they can hear it or listen to my lungs. If I don't have something that's glaringly obvious to them, they will almost always just write it off as stress or anxiety, or just that I don't really know what I'm talking about and that my symptoms must not be that important. This has happened to me over and over and over again. Years ago, in one of my other placements, I was playing dodgeball in the gym and I got hit with a ball and I had a blinding pain in my thumb. And so a little later, I was complaining, so they had me see their doctor that was there. And she was like, well, we can give you some Tylenol if you're in pain. 3 weeks later, my mom finally took me to a doctor when I was on a home visit, and my thumb was broken. Now, I had been complaining for a few days about my thumb, but they would only just offer me Tylenol. And so I stopped complaining because at the time, it was considered a behavior problem if you made medical complaints without foundation. That was actually a behavior on our plans. So if you made a complaint and they didn't find that it was founded in anything, you would be penalized. You would have a consequence, a negative consequence. You would lose privileges. A lot of bad things would happen to you. So I would tend to just not say anything about my medical problems because I was afraid of not being believed and then pinpointing that behavior on me. So I had stopped complaining about my thumb. I told my mom, and she took me to the doctor, and the doctor decided to do an x-ray, and sure enough, my thumb was broken. just one example of a lot of times I've been ignored medically. And I think this is not uncommon. I think it happens a lot to people with disabilities. I think it happens to maybe females a lot, because sometimes doctors think we're a little bit more emotional, or that we focus on our ailments more maybe than males do. And I think if you also have a history either of depression or anxiety, or any kind of mental or emotional issue, and they see that on your record, right away they're going to go to that, and they're going to not as much take you seriously. A lot of times, I know with me, I have a very high pain tolerance. Like, I can be in pain, but I really won't cry or show so much that I'm hurting that much. And how do I know this is because, like, I can break bones and be in pain, but just say, I can just go up to a nurse and say, my finger hurts. Like, I won't be, oh, it's bad, oh, and like showing the pain on my face. I just have a way of putting the pain somewhere else. I don't know if that comes from also maybe me going through the skin shock in the other placement too, where I had to deal with pain that was purposely administered to me, and I just had to learn to deal with it. I don't know where it comes from, but I do know that when I'm in pain, even if it's a lot of pain, I usually don't show it as much as most people. And I think also that leads doctors to sometimes minimize my complaints. Moving ahead, I've had many more instances where I wasn't believed with symptoms that I had that turned out to be actual things going on with me. And the only way I've been able to get actual help from doctors and to be seen and taken seriously is when my family advocates for me. It's really been the only way. And this isn't right. Another solution I found, which shouldn't have to be this way, but I think it's an important bit of advice if you're being ignored medically, is to find an advocate that can basically stick up for you and say, listen, she's been going through these things. I've been there when it happens. And it shouldn't have to be that way. You shouldn't have to prove. It's not a court of law. You shouldn't have to bring proof that you're having this problem, but it does help. It can be someone in your family or a friend that you trust. Maybe you know someone who's a nurse or has some sort of standing in the medical field that maybe with their title they'll be more, take their word, more seriously. That's some tips I have to help if you're going through this same thing. I think a lot of us are going through it. I also worry about people who maybe like literally can't speak, are nonverbal, and they're going through symptoms. It's real important because medical things happen, and I think a lot of times you might not like show it in the way most people will show pain or sickness, and you might do something else. Like, I remember when I was having, I had a abscess tooth, and I was in a lot of pain, but like I couldn't really just sit there and cry or anything. I ended up hitting my head a lot because, I don't know, it's just my reaction to all the pain that I was feeling. And I remember my staff was like, well, what's that going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. But it was just my reaction, And yeah, so I would say if you're having a medical issue that's something that's more unseen, that you can't just show the doctor this thing, but you're having pain or symptoms in your stomach or some kind of feeling that you just know is something medical going on with you, because you're inside your own body and you know the difference between, oh, I'm anxious and, oh, I'm having a symptom of something. I mean, a lot of us are very aware of when something seems different than usual because you're with yourself all the time and So don't give up. If you go to a doctor and they don't take you seriously, maybe come back to that doctor with somebody who can help advocate for you. And if you have to try to find another doctor who might take you more seriously, you can do that. You shouldn't have to go around to 10 doctors in order to get help. So I think you should if you have a doctor that's your doctor you see, you should just be honest with them and say, look, I don't think you're taking me seriously. Sometimes just confronting them. I've done that before. I was like, you don't believe me. I'm afraid you don't believe me. And they'll be like, oh, wait, no, I believe you. And then they'll actually become more attentive. I've done that. Sometimes I just call them out on their bull, because they will start to go on the way of, well, maybe you're anxious for this. And they'll say, you don't believe me, do you? And they'll be taken aback, but sometimes that's what they need to snap them back into thinking, oh, maybe I am doing that. Sometimes I wish I had a veterinarian as a doctor. I know when I take Lemonade to the doctor and I say, oh, she hasn't been eating and she's kind of lethargic. Well, they will do every test in the book to find out what is wrong with her. $1,000 later, but yes, they will find out. I just wanted to make this video because I think it's very important. In my experience, I literally could have died. If I hadn't gotten the medical attention I needed and my family hadn't advocated for me, this whole thing could have been totally different. So if you're having issues, don't give up. Hang in there and keep speaking up and speaking your mind until you find someone that can help you. This is Rebranding Autism. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you another day with another video. Okay, bye. Hi guys. Don't struggle, you make it look bad.